It is detrimental to have in a deep crisis a debt brake that doesn't allow you to spend even on defending yourself. I think the big challenge for the next government will be to get those plans show effectiveness as quickly as possible. But it will be hard.
It's been called a big spending bazooka. Last week, the parties likely to make up Germany's next government crafted a plan to transform the way Germany manages its economy. The effort has been led by Germany's conservative Chancellor-to-be, Friedrich Merz. Now, the Green Party is threatening to torpedo the giant overhaul. Earlier today, I spoke to Marcel Fratscher, the president of the German Institute for Economic Research, and I asked him to summarize the big spending plan. Marcel Fratscher, very briefly, what's in this proposal by the conservative CDU and the Social Democrats?
The future government wants to spend another 500 billion extra on infrastructure investment. That's about 1.2% of GDP every year for the next 10 years, plus additional spending on defense, unlimited above and beyond the debt brake. That's the spending limits they have planned. They also want to cut taxes. They also want to increase some of the social spending. That's additional spending they are promising. So it's a big package of a lot of extra spending for the next few years.
Right, a lot of extra spending, and who's meant to pay for it?
Well, it's additional debt. The German government currently doesn't have a very high debt-to-GDP ratio. It's about 63%. That's one of the lowest levels of public debt compared to other industrialized countries. This additional spending is likely to increase public debt to probably 75-80% over the next few years. But, and that's a big but, if the economy is growing more quickly, and that's the expectation and then the hope, the debt-to-GDP ratio could stay constant. So the big question is, will this package fuel a lot of additional growth so that at least part of the extra spending is financed via higher tax revenues?
So a massive amount of spending on infrastructure and defense in Germany right as it's going through an industrial slump. Is the hope here that Germany can spend its way out of an industrial decline?
Yes, Germany has lost competitiveness over the last 10 to 15 years, in particular because public infrastructure has been decaying. Transport infrastructure, we have a terrible digital infrastructure, energy infrastructure. So the question now is, the choice is, we continue on the path we have been on for the last 15 years. We will experience a deindustrialization. Lots of good jobs will be lost in Germany. Or will Germany, the government and the companies, manage a turnaround? Become more innovative, become more efficient, more productive, and are able to cut costs. And the government has to do its part. Cutting bureaucracy, regulation, investing in a better education, but also more for infrastructure. That's the plan. I hope it will work out, but it's a lot more difficult than it seems.
Right, and the CDU has called this an XXL plan. Now, is the plan really big enough to tackle these issues that you mentioned, like innovation, for example, bureaucracy? Does it address those concerns?
Well, you can't do anything without any money. So money is a prerequisite, but of course money is not everything. And my big concern is a lot of public institutions at the municipal level in particular, they don't have the capacity to spend a lot of extra money. So these capacities need to be built up. Second, we need to become better in terms of regulation and bureaucracy, because the biggest chunk of investment in an economy comes from the private sector, not from the government. So companies, yes, they need a better infrastructure, but they also need less regulation. They need a better tax system. They need to have help with innovation, research and development. They need to have cheaper energy. So there are a lot of extra elements that need to be put in place for this to work out. But again, it's a first step. Without money, you can't achieve anything. The money is there for sure, but now the other reforms need to follow.
And going back to defense, so a large part of this plan is to ramp up defense manufacturing in Germany. Now, there are some people that find it perhaps disconcerting that Germany's economic revival could be based on producing weapons. What are the concerns there?
The big concern is, first of all, don't spend it on Germany and German manufacturers, right? We know the spending on defense has been very inefficient in the past because there has been this national bias. Rather than having a European procurement, doing this jointly with the European neighbors, all European countries do it on their own. That's very expensive, very inefficient, not successful. So we need to cooperate better at a European level. We also need to cooperate with the US, obviously. That is a big challenge to appease a Trump administration. I'm quite optimistic that it can work out to build up capacity in the defense sector in Europe relatively quickly. We are in a war situation. This spending will continue for the next 10 to 15 years, so companies have a big incentive to build up capacity, but it should be done efficiently at a European level.
How can this work on a practical level? Can people just imagine factory workers going from producing Volkswagen to producing guns in the future?
No, defense spending is very capital intensive. It's not that you will have hundreds of thousands of workers now suddenly working in the defense industry. If you think of the new weapons, not just tanks, but drones, that is very capital intensive. It's not labor intensive. The big challenge is in Germany actually not that unemployment, but it's a lack of skilled workers. We have a big gap already now because of Germany's demographics. We are shrinking in terms of the working age population. And in the future, all those jobs that will become vacant in industry, in the car manufacturers, those jobs are needed elsewhere. So workers will find jobs elsewhere. That is not the problem, quite the opposite. We need more immigration of skilled workers in Germany.
Right, but if those workers are not going into the defense industry, then are we investing into the right industry right now rather than investing in high technology industries of the future, perhaps?
Defense is partly high technology, and we know from many examples in the past, in particular looking at the US, spending on defense can actually help to have big positive spillovers for other parts of the economy. So think of the invention of the internet. Think of many other inventions. That was first done with the help of the US defense industry. And spending in that way that will improve efficiency, help develop new technologies, will ultimately have spillovers to the rest of the economy. It will take some time, but also defense spending can have a positive impact on growth and productivity.
Now, the Green Party this week has signaled that it does not support the plan as it stands, but votes by the Green Party are essential to get this plan passed by Parliament. What are the qualms of the German Green Party?
The problem is that the Conservative Party and the Social Democrats, the likely future partners in government, have basically increased spending on things that are important to them. It's not just infrastructure spending, but it's also they want to increase pension payments. They want to cut taxes to some of their favorite groups. And the Green Party is saying, look, you need our votes for this to pass in Parliament. For us, we also have important priorities like the protection of climate and the environment. So we want to see some of that spending go into those areas, and those are obviously very important. So you can see where the consensus will come from, but particularly Friedrich Merz, the leader of the Conservative Party, needs to do a better job in communicating and talking to the Greens, getting them on board. That will be the challenge for the next week.
And Germany's last government failed because the coalition parties couldn't agree on how the government should spend its money and how much money it should spend. Will this be a repeat?
No, it will not be a repeat. Now the Conservatives and the Social Democrats have decided the debt brake is no longer sensible. It is detrimental to have in a deep crisis a debt brake that doesn't allow you to spend even on defending yourself. So that is a game changer. The debt brake is not really effective anymore because these additional spending budgets are outside the debt brake. I think the big challenge for the next government will be to get those plans show effectiveness as quickly as possible. But it will be hard. If you want to increase investment, public investment, we're often talking about 2, 3, 4 years for this to really take hold. So they need to be fast. They need to deregulate. They need to find some shortcuts. And they need to agree on the priorities. And if they manage that, and Germany recovers not just in terms of the economy, but also in terms of the sentiment, then this can be a big success and will reward the two parties in the next election.
So you're still hopeful for this plan, despite the Greens today saying that they don't agree?
I see that the Green Party has always been very constructive in the past few years. And I am convinced that if the Conservative Party and the Social Democrats make the right offer to say, look, climate protection is important to you, Green Party, we take you along, we make sure there is additional spending, and that's how we're going to do it. It's easy to find a solution, but they need to make that effort.
Marcel Fratscher, thank you so much for speaking to us.
My pleasure.